The winds guide you.
Hello everybody, this is going to be a video about the differences between the Alliance and the Horde if you're having difficulty picking one of the factions. I wanted to break the differences down into 5 points: geography, raid difficulty, PvP advantages, leveling, and some other minor differences. Alright, so the first point we're going to bring up is going to be the geography of the map. And that's mostly going to be the advantages of their city layouts, like the major cities, as well as some of the minor quest hubs, like Grungle, things like that. And the first one we're going to bring up is better dungeon access. That's going to go to the Horde. And that's because they get just better dungeon access while leveling mostly. And then even at higher levels, they have easier access to things like Scholomance and Stratholme and Dire Maul. Like, all of these dungeons are very easy for Horde to get to from their major cities. The Alliance has to do quite a bit more of a journey to get there. Like Scarlet Monastery, that's another one that the Horde gets while leveling. Very easy, close to Undercity. Very difficult for Alliance to get there. And the next point I was going to bring up is better early raid access. That goes to the Alliance, of course. And that's mostly because the early 2 raids, Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, are very close to their cities. So, if you look at the map, that's Ironforge there, and you just take a quick little flight path down and you're at Molten Core, BWL. Or if you want to take that one, you just go up there. So in terms of their major cities, it's much easier. The Horde would usually just go to Kargath and then go from there, so they could set their hearth or something. And then if you fly over there, then you could take a boat to Onyxia, and then you get to hop into a city, and it's pretty quick. The Horde takes a little bit longer to get to Onyxia in my experience, so I gave that one for the Alliance. And now my next point is late game raid access, which this is Naxxramas and AQ40, AQ20 raids. And this one goes to the Horde. That's because their cities are much closer. Getting in Kalimdor in general for AQ sucks as Alliance. Their main city is Darnassus. It's on the opposite side of the map. And then for Naxxramas, it's right next to Undercity. Very quick for Horde. And the last point is going to be the world buff access. This is mostly if you plan on raiding a lot. You'll probably end up getting lots of world buffs, like the Songflower Serenade and Fellwood. And then it's really easy to move from Dire Maul. You get all these Dire Maul buffs, you move up to Fellwood, and then from there you can just get a portal to Orgrimmar, and then you hearth to Kargath, and then you're starting your raid with all these buffs. It's a much better route for the Horde than it is for the Alliance, but it's only if you're going to raid, which is probably a good time to move on to raid difficulty now. So the first point is going to be Paladins versus Shamans. And obviously Paladins are better for raiding. That's widely accepted. You might think Windfury Totem is pretty damn good, right? That's got to beat out all those Alliance buffs, but no. It doesn't compare to Blessing of Salvation. The amount of DPS you can get because you have less threat is a major issue. So having that is a bigger DPS increase than any buff a Shaman can give you. You also get all the other buffs, like King's Wisdom, like all those buffs, Might. They just bring a lot more to the table. And now it's going to be the PvE racials, which I also am going to give to the Alliance. And the racials are pretty even. Like, humans are a little bit better for warriors, things like that. For the most part, there's no big advantage unless you look at a priest racial like Fear Ward. Now, that thing just trivializes a lot of encounters. Alliance does get better racials in that sense. And now let's look at some of the PvP advantages. The PvP racials, I think, are better for the Horde. A lot of that has to do with the Orc racial hardiness. This thing is insane in PvP. And then look how many classes have a stun. Every class gets a stun. 25% chance to resist a stun is great. And then Will of the Forsaken, probably the second best PvP racial in the game. Also really strong. A lot of, like, 4 classes here, it breaks all of those effects. It's really damn good against that. And War Stomp is also really great in PvP. So they get a ton of better PvP racials in that sense. Battleground Advantages, that one goes to the Alliance, and it's not because of Warsong Gulch, that's pretty damn even. Rathia Basin, Horde gets Water Walking, it might be slightly better, but the bigger difference is going to be Alteric Valley. This one is definitely Alliance favored, and it has a lot to do with the damn bridge, because crossing that bridge is a nightmare. You're going to get shot down by arrows a lot. It's painful as Horde, it's much easier as Alliance, you just walk in the base. It's a huge difference in that. If we look at Paladin versus Shaman in PvP, they're just not really comparable, so we're just going to move on to the next thing. It's going to be leveling process. So early leveling zones, definitely easier on the Horde side. That mostly has a lot to do with the damn mobs in Westfall being so hard, the Defies Pillager, those mechanical reaper things, the harvesters. These mobs are way harder than anything the Horde has to deal with. They also have like some pretty damn hard quests in the early zones. Hogger's not a joke. And then also the caves, like the mines, those are really painful to traverse. And then if you move on to Red Ridge, you get forced PvP zones way earlier. It's just way harder. The Horde has barons forever. But if you're somebody who cares a lot about the story and the better storytelling, the lore, things like that, it's definitely the Alliance gets that advantage. They just have a lot more memorable quest lines. Like, here's a ton of them. I'm sure you remember at least one or two of these quest lines if you actually played the Alliance back then. There's like they traverse over so many zones, so many levels. You get a lot of good story, a lot of good lore in these quests, and they're just a lot of fun too. They're a lot more fun, I think, a lot more memorable, and it feels like you're actually finishing a story, kind of like modern WoW, if that's more of your style of thing. So you got like the Legend of Stalvin. You finish off a huge quest line, you kill the guy, and then you move on, and then you go to Abercrombie here. I'm sure you remember this guy. Summoning the Stitches guy, you help him out, and then he kind of betrays you. He summons this giant abomination to attack the town. And then after that, you got the Onyxia questline as the Alliance. Much more memorable as the Alliance. You end up at the Stormwind Keep, you're fighting Lady Prestor, things like that. A lot better story. Now finally, we're going to end off with the other minor differences. Things like the city layouts. Undercity's layout is really bad in comparison to everything. And then buffs, what I mean is Paladins take forever to buff. I found it really annoying. It seemed to slow down my raids. I didn't really like how many buffs the Alliance had to give out. Faction-specific mounts, that's like the Winter Spring Frost Saber. There's no other Horde equivalent. And then more world PvP. Generally, Horde players are more open to doing world PvP, and they engage in it more and will actually help each other. Plus, there's no elves on the Horde. But anyways, these are the changes I had listed. It's not a huge difference between the factions. Like, if you have friends that are playing one, just play with them. Just pick whatever you really like, whatever you prefer. It doesn't make a massive difference, but these were just some ideas I thought of to bring up. So thanks for watching. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe for more content. I'll be trying to put out a video every week. Let me know what you thought of the video. Thanks.